I would really encourage you sometime soon to go out on a starlit night, turn off all the lights you can, get the house lights off, get the outside lamppost off, go to some remote spot and just consider God. Or sit someplace where you know the sun is going to be conspicuous and it's rising. Watch a sunrise and think about God. It'll do something for you. And we'll find out a little bit today just what it can and should do in your life.
Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. If today's conversation is a help to you, take a moment to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Now, let's join Kurt for today's episode.
Good morning, my friends. Welcome back. Morning for most of you, I would guess. But whenever you're listening to this episode, I'm glad that you're tuning in. And we are in Psalm 19. Just a very memorable psalm. In fact, as I've said before, so many of these psalms are even songs in our minds today. All of them were intended to be sung many years ago, but many of them don't have a tune even today associated with them, but some do. And this is one. This is a psalm that I remember singing as a teenager at youth group years ago. Psalm 19, verses 7 through 11. We'll get to that here in a bit, but wow, what a great psalm it is. We're in verse number 1, where it says, introductory words to the chief musician, probably God, a psalm of David. And think about the grandeur of this psalm. Let's jump right in. Verse number 1. In fact, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to read Psalm 1 through 6 because I just don't want to chop it up. It's really just that powerful. So let me read the section we're going to cover, and then we'll come back and talk a bit about it. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out throughout all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Don't you love that? Don't you love that language about the poetic language about creation and how creation speaks of God? And you'll find that all throughout the Word of God. I find it interesting that the Word of God, the Bible, begins with creation. Why? Because that is the beginning. And that's the beginning not just of time and space, but it ought to be the foundation to our thinking, that it all starts with God. And the very first thing that God did ought to be one of the most powerful messages about who God is. And that's what David is saying here. So when did David write this psalm? We don't know. It could have been at any point in his life. But understand that David spent a lot of time outdoors. It really wasn't until David was a well-established king that we read about him spending time indoors, like his palace and other places. Really, for most of David's life, he was outside. And when you're outside, especially back in those days, we're talking about 3,000 years ago. When you think about David, always think about 1000 BC. That hits the date just about right. About 1000 BC. So 3,000 years ago, David lived, and he didn't have the benefit of electricity, obviously, of man-made light at night. Now, when the sun went down, it was dark. When the sun came up, it got light. So everything that David knew was based upon the rising and the setting of the sun. And when you are in a place where you're not inhibited by by artificial light, boy, the stars are much more vivid. Have you ever been on a starlit night when there was no other man-made light around, no lamppost, no headlights, no neon lights, but you could just look up? It's just amazing. So David was much more in tune with nature than you and I are. And I think that's probably one of the problems of modern society is because most of what we look at is man-made, we tend to be more man-centered and self-sufficient. And I think the more that we could separate ourselves from us and from what we've done and see what God has done, I think the more stable we would become as we realize that there is a creator under whose authority we must abide, to whom we must answer. And that's the whole point that Paul brings out in Romans chapter 1. The Bible says that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. So when they look into the heavens, they understand the eternal nature and the power of God, even his eternal Godhead, Paul said in Romans 1. So to see the creation of God accurately is to see the authority of God in a very real way. And so David here, he kind of marries those two ideas. Verse number 1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament, the sky, showeth his handiwork. No honest person could look up at the heavenly host, can look up at the stars, can look up at the planets, can look up at the sun and the moon, can look at the design of God's handiwork in the firmament and deny that God deserves the glory and that God is the one with his very fingers that has created everything. In fact, Paul tells us that a denial of God based upon the evidence of creation is not so much an intellectual denial, but it's more of a willful denial. I deny his power. I deny his authority. And the Bible says, and because of that, God has given them up unto their own lusts, in that whole passage there in Romans 1. So let's allow what God does to speak to us about who God is. Verse number 2, day unto day uttereth speech, night unto night showeth knowledge. So David said, God preaches his message every day. Creation tells the story of God every night. It's every single day. The consistency of the rotation of the earth, the consistency of the revolution of the earth and the rotation around the sun, the consistency of all of what he's talking about here, the sun, the moon, the stars, all of it speaks to God. Every day is a brand new message, and the new message is the old message. God reiterates his glory every day. God reiterates his message every day. God reiterates his power, his authority, his presence, his reality every single day. It says, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. When I met my wife, she speaks Spanish as her first language, and she didn't know much English, and I didn't know any Spanish. I mean, I knew taco, I knew burrito, I think I knew hola, but I didn't know much else. So we had some funny conversations in the early days. But you know what language we both spoke? The language of looking at the stars and realizing there's a God. That's a language, that's not Chinese or Spanish or English or Greek. No, that's everybody understands that. Every language, every people group, male and female, old and young, rich and poor, everybody gets that. There is no language where their voice is not heard. Even missionaries that have gone to the most remote and tribal people realize that these tribal people who might not have the knowledge base that first world countries do, boy, they know there's something out there. They know there's a God up there. Why? Because creation shouts that story every single day. Their line, their measuring stick, is gone out throughout the whole earth. Their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. Again, reiterating, everybody knows about this. And then David specifically, he's been talking about the night showing knowledge, but now he specifically talks about every single day. So what can you expect tomorrow morning? Here's what you can expect. You can expect the sun to rise. So David says here in verse number 4, it's like the sun coming out of its tent. It's in the tent, it's dark, and then like the metaphor here, the poem, the literary language that David is using here, it's like the sun gets up and comes out of its tent every morning. And then the Bible says it's like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. That would be something that would be very exciting, something that would be awaited. Like, wow, the bridegroom's coming out of his chamber. It's time to go get the bride. And this is a time of expectation, a time of joy. And every sunrise should be a time of joy to realize God's not done with us. God's mercies are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. And even in the lowest moment of Jeremiah's life, as he looked at the rubble of Jerusalem, he could say, great is God's faithfulness. Like the sun that rises, there is God. Verse number 5, like a bridegroom rejoicing as a strong man to run a race. You know, the sun runs its race every day, comes across the sky, the predictability of God's creation, the declaration of God's creation. And then verse number 6, his going forth, that's the sun, is from the end of the heaven, from one side, his circuit, the circle, unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. So the sun shines upon everybody. It shines every day. And the benefits of the sun, heat. Think about where would we be without the sun? Well, we'd be cold. In fact, I think my office at the church is the one little place in the universe where the sun doesn't shine because I'm always cold. But that aside, the sun, its light comes to everybody. Its benefit, its heat comes to everybody. And the implication there is the glory of God shines upon everybody. And the knowledge of God is available to everybody. The grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men, Paul told Titus. And one of the ways by which God has expressed his grace is by showing us the way he takes care of us with the universe he's created and giving us light, which we didn't understand till even recently. You know, photosynthesis and chlorophyll and how light is essential to growth and the heat of the sun. And the sun's 93 million miles away or 96 million miles away, however it is, one of you will write and tell me. But its light takes 8 minutes to even reach the earth. We didn't know any of that back when David wrote this, but the more we learn about it, the more we realize, wow, if the sun were just a fraction farther, we would all freeze. If the sun were just a fraction closer, we would all melt. The point is God. It's all about God and his care for us. Last verse I'll read. Actually, that was the last verse I'll read right there, and that's a good place to stop. So we're going to quit there in verse number 6. Next episode, we're going to look at what was a song that we used to sing as teenagers. I think they still sing it today, although it's been a long time since I was a teenager. And I want you to join us for that episode. So we'll quit right there. Have a great day in the Lord, and watch the sunrise sometime soon. Think about God, and we'll see you next time. God bless you, my friends.